On today's show, we got Jacki Leahy here with Activate the Magic, which I'm going to just interrupt the whole intro there and say, I think that is a badass company name. And I love the hell out of it because I am so sick and tired of companies doing something that has to do with their industry or whatever generic with their name. So applaud there for sure. But today we're going to be speaking about RevOps. And I know you're all thinking, what the hell is that? And what does that mean for me as a business owner? We'll get into that. But first, we want to hear from Jacki and how she got involved and how she's even getting and running her own business in the RevOps world. So without me fumbling around even more so, why don't you tell us your story?
Hello. Yes, I'm Jacki Leahy, and I'm actually a former kindergarten teacher.
What? Where?
In Phoenix, Arizona, and in Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Oh, those are complete opposites.
Those are different places, yes. And I pivoted to tech in 2015. I wanted to get into the tech startup world. So I started as a BDR, that's business development representative. That is like the entry level sales grind, terrible, like cold calling, cold emailing, like please don't make me job for not a lot of money. And so I was 33 and I had a master's degree and ready to take over the world. And all of my peers were like 22, 23 and just like, is it happy hour yet? Right. So yeah. That was quite the juxtaposition. But eventually just absolutely ended up loving cold outbound, started leading sales teams. And at my third startup, I was hire number 10. And the first lady, thank you.
Ooh.
And I was hired to build the business development program. And over the course of that, somebody had to figure out the back end of Salesforce. Somebody had to figure out how to connect all the tools that we were using to do the thing in a programmatic way. And that is my origin story.
Just, an old first lady in the tech world.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Because old in tech is, anything above 27,
Yep.
It seems like.
Yeah. Senior, geriatric.
Yeah. Just go ahead, put me in retirement. It's fine. That's awesome. When you came from being a kindergartner into tech, what was the major jump for you, like more emotionally? What really allowed you to do that?
Yeah, well, I had a couple career iterations between. I was a personal banker and a real estate agent and helped my family business, so lots of things. But really, the compelling reason why I wanted to get into tech was it looked like fun. It looked like they were figuring things out that had not been figured out before. So since then I've found the books like 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel and we're creating something out of nothing. And there's the thing that I kept getting frustrated about was I had teaching. I figured it out. I had the lesson plans already. Boring. No, I want to go figure something else out. And with real estate, I was like, oh, I know how to do this now. Right. I SEO up my website and I pay Zillow and I figured it out. Now what? Right. And so I saw the tech startup world as oh, there's no possible way to have it all figured out. Yeah. And that's why I think I absolutely fell in love with Salesforce. And basically, I call it the HVAC and plumbing behind revenue teams. So that's marketing, sales, and customer success in the B2B world, the business to business world. But it's not unique to B2B. So if you're an entrepreneur and you need to figure out how to get your website up and if someone wants to enter the email, where does the email go? Where does it go? What data are you capturing? What are you enriching with? How are you reaching out to them? So not just the messaging, but the actual how, not the what, not the why, but the how. Oh, that is just yummy.
And that is why you started your own business
Mm.
as a consultant in that realm, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've been on the consulting side of RevOps since 2020. And I started my own agency about a year and a half ago. And so we're a team of about 10 now. We're just super curious and obsessed with figuring things out. I like to say tech stack is my love language. So now we fractionally help companies on a month to month basis. So we're super technical and in the Salesforce and HubSpot ecosystems. Mhm.
What have you found since one starting your own agency? Because being a business owner, there's a lot of issues. I mean, it sucks, but it's very fulfilling all at the same time.
Mhm.
What have you found both personally in having your own business and then exactly being the fractional side of things? What have you found is the hardest issue or the weakest spot within companies?
Ooh, within companies, um, people think they know what they want. And then they tell a Salesforce consultant what they want. And the very technical, incredible consultants then go build them what they say they want. And then they show them what they want. And it's like, this isn't what I want. Right. And so I think there's just such a cavern between what people think that they want and what will actually be useful and practical. So I think that's really people think they're paying us for our technical chops, but it's really we're not giving you solutions. We're giving you problems with your solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Can you give us like an example of something that's relatively common in that space? I know I have a lot of my own, but give us an example of like someone saying, "Hey, this is exactly what I want." Them thinking that, and then poking all the holes in it and going, "No, this is truly what you want."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, people really want. Oh, you know what? We need a price calculator. We need a super intricate, like way method to automatically like let our prospects use a calculator and enter in all these things and do this custom package. But here's the thing, like it's going to be super complicated. Nobody's going to be able to use it. And guess what's going to happen in 6 weeks? Your head of sales is going to want to change the pricing structure. So you just spent 15 grand on shelfware.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that a lot, even with my own CRM, and in my industry, it's a conundrum, right? Like
Mhm.
can't really use HubSpot or Salesforce to the degree at which we want to because the integrations with all the other tools aren't great when you're in the small sector, right? Your Fidelities, your Schwabs and stuff will. That's totally different because
Yeah.
of the size.
Yeah.
But for everyone smaller and small businesses, like in our industry, it just doesn't work. And then you end up not using half of it, right? And
Yeah.
you paid $15,000 to use a quarter of what you
Yeah.
needed to do. But like other businesses and companies should be using those types of platforms. Can you speak on how a full system really would work and save time? Because I feel like a lot of people like have this hopes and dreams and then they need to learn it, but then they revert back to what they're comfortable with, which is pen and pad or Excel sheet or something like that. Can you talk to us about what a whole platform would look like and what it does for the team?
Mm. Ooh. Well, if there was one whole platform, I would love that. Can someone
Yes,
look into
right?
that?
I know.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like the big like the one platform concept, I end up hating because it's usually like a one company's doing well and then they like acquire all the adjacent tools and they try to make it all one platform and it's this like Frankenstein behemoth that doesn't actually care about their end user anymore. And so I have a personal gripe with those all-in-one platforms. I will say I love sort of the scrappy tools that punch above their weight. So HubSpot is actually fantastic, like chef's kiss. Um, I have a link for you, but if you want, you can get the professional hub for $100 a month. That is like $800 a month. Like, it gives you everything you need: website, landing pages, forms, like drips, campaigns, like automations. It gives you everything so you can really grow into it. But even if you just, there's a free version, and then there's a $30 a month version, and it works really well with other tools, which is cool. Like, Salesforce doesn't really like to work with other tools easily, and it's tough to configure. I like to call HubSpot like Fisher Price CRM, because it just works. Like, you just click around, and like, it's like it's like when I was a little kid and I was like pretending to be a chef. It's like, oh, like, here's the soup, here's the pancakes. Like, it just works. Like, you don't have to think about all the stuff. Like, you just couple clicks and someone fills out your Calendly link, and all of a sudden they're in your CRM. I feel like I'm just now getting into rabbit holes, but yeah, I love solutions that play well with others and are super reasonable priced wise, and really care about the end user, like us.
How many, being in the tech world, there's probably 100 solutions per thing.
Mm.
How does a business owner really narrow down what they need or what's best for them when there is so many different options that do similar things, do different things? Like, what kind of process would you go through in figuring out a tech stack?
Yeah. First of all, it's the theory of constraints, right? If you look at your entire business like it was like a Model T Ford production like line, right? Don't worry about wrenching the rivets if the big problem is actually getting the doors on, right? So if you kind of map how a customer would find out about you, learn about you, select you, like really map out how that happens, and okay, what is actually the biggest constraint here, and solve for that. So don't worry about like your conversion rates if over here if you can't actually close anybody. Right? So
Yeah.
really figure out where the holdup is, because here's the thing, Story. Once you solve for that, you're going to have a whole different set of problems. You don't know what's going to be the biggest constraint after you solve this biggest constraint. So I think that's the biggest thing. And sometimes the solution is not technical. Like, sometimes, well, all the time, a tool isn't actually going to solve the problem. Like,
Yeah.
putting your credit card in and charging it for a tool is not actually going to solve it, right? Of course. And I'll leave it at that. Complete.
Yeah, right. I talked to everyone about this, and I think this is kind of what you're alluding to, is everything and nothing will be perfect all at the same time, right? Like, you can't have the perfect system and processes and all of that. You'll never really achieve perfection in business ownership and sales. It's just not there because things change so often.
Yeah.
Tech changes, buyers change, all of these things change. And so what you're saying is attack the big thing, the bigger issue. And once that's done, then something else changes and you've got to adapt to that. So every business owner out there, you're never going to be perfect. Things are never going to be the way you want them to, and be okay with that. Live that way. But I will put this caveat: be transparent with your end user or clients as well, and let them know, hey, we're working on things. We're growing and adapting. What do you want to hear? What do you want to know? What do you want to see? And we're going to make those things come to light as much as possible, because ultimately all we want to do as clients or business owners is we just want to build relationships ultimately. And if we can build a relationship with you, we're both on board with knowing, hey, we've got to work through some of these issues, we're going to be okay. It's when you don't communicate and things start to go south, that's when you lose business.
Amen.
Preach. So as someone is going through this right now, they're thinking, oh crap, I have this issue. I want to go through this tech. I don't have time. I don't know where to think. How do you come in your business come in with your team to help them get through that? Because right now, business owners going, I don't have time
Mm,
to figure this out. I'm just going to just deal with it, right?
mhm.
And I know that when they don't have time, that means they don't implement it correctly either,
Right.
which then we are in a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
If you're at the point where you really need and can afford external help, so we help companies on a fractional month-to-month basis, starting at about 4 hours a week for 4,000 a month. Um, and but if that's out of reach, right, I recommend joining conversations with other people who are struggling with the same things. So I do have a free community called The Cauldron, into the cauldron.com. We have a Slack community with people talking all about this stuff and a monthly Zoom where we have a topic of the month. This month, Max Cohen is talking about inbound physics. So how to apply like the attract and delight, engage sort of flywheel, but in real life. Um, of course, the tech stack that goes along that, and just joining the conversations of other people who are trying to figure this out too. Because even just following those conversations, I learned so much. Just like it, like osmosis, and
Absolutely.
you get to know the gossip, right? The tech gossip. Like actually, skip Asana, click up is where it's at. It's like, oh, that would have been good to know.
Yeah. Glad I didn't waste already hours of my life trying to figure that out.
Oops. Yeah.
I also think those types of communities make you understand that like you're not in it
Yeah.
in this thing called life alone, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what we have podcasts for. That's why we want to talk. That's why we all have businesses. Is like ultimately you're not in this thing alone. You're not as unique as you think you are. Like we all are going through a lot of the same shit issues
Yeah.
on repeat. So why not be part of a community that you can trust that says, hey, yeah, at ClickUp's where it's at, not Asana. When you're like,
Mhm.
but I just started with them and I'm knee deep in it. Yeah, right. Those types of things that they can help you with.
Yeah. Been there. This is what you need to do. 100%. And also know that like nobody's got it figured out. Like that's the big secret. Like I went to the Gartner chief sales officer convention conference last year, and like I was talking to like huge companies, and guess what, their Salesforce org or their data is messy. Nobody's got it figured out. So it's just like celebrate where you are, like take the pressure off. Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all figuring this out. And if anybody tries to make you feel dumb for asking a question, they're just
Correct.
insecure. That's
Yep.
that.
I agree.
And
I'll
send them
beat
to
them
me.
up.
I'll beat them up.
I love how you how no one knows. No one has their shit together. I don't know a single person
Nobody.
that has their actual shit
Mm-mm,
together at all. Like at all.
mm-mm.
Um
And if they do, they're
yeah,
playing small.
absolutely. Correct. Yep. Or you just don't know they're out there because they disappeared. Like they don't they've got it so together that like I don't want to deal with people. I'm out. I am I am gone. Like that's what I see. But most of us are just trying to figure this thing out
Mhm,
in life ultimately. Now, let's dive in a
mhm.
little bit into your business ownership, right? Because you're relatively young in that those prospects.
Mm.
What has been the most difficult thing of being a startup, I use that lightly, in this space, in getting people to understand that they need to hire a consultant for this role? And I say that because it's not like them buying a piece of software. It's not like they get the instant
Mm.
gratification because it takes work. And not only does it take work to help on the front end, they also then have to implement it over time. So what's been the most difficult thing of getting people to understand that value, or has it been difficult?
Yeah, I love the way you talk about it. Because selling services and delivering services as a company is a struggle, right? It's so different than having a product that people can buy, right? That you can deliver. So like productizing service and delivering it, um, and attempting to scale, even just replicate. It's a lot of hand choosing people on both sides. So on the talent side and also on the client side, um, what I'm building is new and different on the market, right? And so a lot of it is just educating or just evangelizing, hey, there's a new way to do this. And this is what I'm building. I'm building what I would have murdered to have had when I was an accidental admin in-house,
Yeah.
right? Like 6 years ago. Slash when I was first coming on the consulting side, like the type of company, the agency company that I would have loved to have joined um, back then. So we're not selling billable hours like the traditional Salesforce consulting shop. You buy like a bucket of hours and you whittle down those hours. You have like a statement of work, like a scoped project. And here's the thing with in RevOps, and I think in startups and entrepreneur like this world, like things move so fast that like it doesn't make sense to because like you get 4 days into the project and all of a sudden you have to like renegotiate scope. Like no, right? So hey, you're not purchasing we're not doing a statement of work, we're not doing a scope project. You're also not buying billable hours. What you're purchasing is bandwidth. What you're purchasing is a reserved spot in our hearts and minds. Right? So not yeah, it's about 4 hours of bandwidth, but that could look like we're walking our dogs, we're in the shower, we're like really embedded in your world and really taking on your point of view and solutioning for you all the time. So selling that is a lot. That's like trust, right? And the cool thing is that we're doing month to month, so which is unheard of in our world, right? You got to do a year contract or 6 month, like 3 month minimum agreement, and I kind of relish the gauntlet of yeah, you can cancel, like literally you can cancel because it has us on the hook to deliver impact, like and not just on paper impact but like visceral, like they can feel it because that invoice is coming and either they want to pay it or they don't. And it also has the client on the hook to deliver feedback. So if we're not hitting the spot, like you got to tell us what what's wrong, what we're doing bad, what can we get better at, what how to do it better. Because if they don't, they're going to have a real uncomfortable conversation in 2 weeks, right? I think it's really when you're in a 3 month engagement, that friction, that social, like nobody wants to tell somebody else that they're doing a bad job, especially if they're nice. Like we're all nice and they're
Right.
nice people. It's not like nobody wants to be like, you kind of suck. And like the only reason that I'm still talking to you once a week is because we're locked into this contract. Like that's the worst. Like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like hearing. Well, the only reason that I'm married to you is because I signed something, and like
I'm
like,
stuck. Like,
oh no, like no. There's
but that's
yeah,
you caring for people over money, right? The whole contract
yeah,
locking people in is only about money. It's not for their
yeah.
purpose or your protection, really, any of that. It's literally comes down to money. They
Just
could. They
not
could just
pay.
literally not pay.
It's
Right? That's what no one talks about. If I just didn't pay, most
not
companies are not going to come sue you
pay.
for the rest of it. Now, if it was a
No,
huge contract, probably, but
no.
like mostly,
Whatever. If I had
well,
in-house law,
but it's not going to
sure.
happen, right? Which is
Nothing
another reason to
happen.
just go month to
No,
month. It's fine. Like everyone understands that.
it's month to
It
month
really is.
anyway.
It really is. Almost every contract. And I know attorneys out there that would agree to that too. They're like, if people really wanted to break it, they can and they will. There's just no like there really isn't much to do about it. And as a good customer service business, you really wouldn't fight it either, right? Like you just would be like,
No,
okay, let's finish out this month and like maybe I'll never have you as a client again, but like
I'm gonna get some
fight.
feedback that's gonna be super
Right.
freaking valuable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Back end stuff. So on the back end of everything that's going on, what do you, or I guess let me back up. What do you suggest that people build in their back end? Since you've been in all those roles, now they're not hiring you for this, they're not doing any of that, but like, how should people build their admin system or team to really help enhance without having to hire someone else and go through all of that stuff? Like, how should they build that team?
I would go for like MVP, minimum viable solution, because anything you build, you have no idea what's going to happen in 3 months or 6 months or a year, right? So like it is super tempting to like go down rabbit holes and like build like that video game like Age of Empires, like you build a whole like
Right.
city and like, but who knows if anybody's actually going to move into that city. Like you're not going to, you don't know if you're getting residents or not, right? So really building the plane as you're flying it, which feels super nauseating, but that's what you do. And also just accept that that's what everybody's doing. And I would say go with things that play well together. Like Stripe, it's just easy, right? It works with HubSpot. It's easy. Calendly's easy. Like, so just use the tools that are simple and work with other things. I think a lot of times people are tempted to be like, well, this one's only $10.99, not $39.99. And like, it's like, yeah, but you're going to whack your head against the wall. It's like, oh, I don't want to go with HubSpot or Salesforce because, they're it's like, yeah, but
Yeah.
nothing. It's almost like, oh, I'm not going to get it's like the people who don't want an iPhone. It's like, yeah, but it just works.
Hey, I don't want an iPhone. I'm one of those people. Yeah, don't.
But you probably have your own ecosystem, right? So if you've got the Android and you get the whole ecosystem, you're not gonna be like, well, this is the best of this and this is the best of this. It's like, no, like unless you really love misery. I mean,
hey, the iPhones are the ones that finally came back around and getting USB-C chargers, and doing all the universal stuff. So don't get me started with all that.
I will happily get you started because I wish everyone would just have an iPhone so I could put little hearties over messages.
Pure for selfish reasons. I just want to put some emojis on stuff.
I don't think that's selfish. I am saving the world. Every emoji reaction that I leave is making someone stay. So therefore, mandatory iPhones.
Mandatory iPhones.
Please.
Apple would love you. All right, as we get to the end of this, what is one thing that you want to leave all our listeners with that they can take that next step forward in their business and being more efficient so that way their revenue can grow?
Yeah. Babe, you are sitting on a pile of gold. You are. You are. And so it really is just about activating. That's why I call it's like activating the magic. Like everything you need, you already have. Everything that you have it's all that you need. And so you're not solving for any sort of personal, like, you're good enough. That's not, your worthiness is not on the table at all. So, like, actually get that and step into action because the world is yours.
As Jackie said, the world is your oyster. You are the magic. Just do it, Jackie. Just do it.
You just got to twirl the wand a little bit. That's all.
Well, I appreciate you, and I appreciate that. Everyone, go to activatethemagic.com, and obviously this will be in all the descriptions. Just follow, just activate, and go ahead and communicate. You have your community, the Cauldron. We have our community at No BS Wealth. Just start talking because there's a lot of people out there that are in the same, very similar boat as you.
Hear,
The
hear.
preceding program was sponsored by Black Mammoth. Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Black Mammoth. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Black Mammoth website, www.blackmammoth.com. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions and securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice due to various factors including changing market conditions. The information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up-to-date, Black Mammoth do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature and is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results.